I know y'all see the title, right? That Jesus teach to keep the law, right? Which is an important topic, especially during these times, right? So yeah, I wanted to get a little bit into that, as we move on our way to the book of Matthew and stuff, right? It's the basically you can say part two of it. And we started off reading the first four chapters and all that. So now we in chapter 5, right? So yeah, so we're gonna get right into it. Of course, first all praises to the Most High and His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, right? So yeah, we're gonna get right into it. Let's start with Matthew 5, right? Matthew 5, verse 1. And it reads, and it says, "And seeing the multitude, he went up unto the mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him." Right? So now, this is the quick little recap. The first chapter we read and all that cool stuff was getting into his lineage, his lineage, then him being baptized and all that stuff, and we were talking about how establishing his lineage to David is important because the Messiah, according to the scriptures, has to line up with prophecy. So that's why we spent some time last time, kind of going over the lineage and all that stuff. So, but yeah, anyway, so let me, verse 2, and it says, "And he said, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for their kingdom, for the kingdom of heaven," right? It says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." So, and that's important, because it says, "Blessed are the poor," because their kingdom is the kingdom of heaven, right? So, meaning, you got a lot of people that's, out here, poor, homeless or whatever the case may be, And so it says, "Blessed are the poor," right? Because when you're poor, that there's no more religious person. Well, I can say that, but when you poor, you in that state of needing help, you're willing to, any assistance you can get, right? So that's that's the same thing which says the poor. So it says the kingdom. So it says poor in spirit. It says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for it's the kingdom of heaven," right? So like I said, a lot of times we be struggling and tripping on how much we got and what we ain't got. So we, when you stay humble and keep that humble spirit, the Bible says blessed, right? So let's get Revelation 3:17, right? So, and it says, but thou sayest, I am rich, and increase with goods, and have need of nothing, but knowest that not thou art, notice we read again, it says, but thou say I am rich, right? So, that's what a lot of people, do. They get a certain amount of money. They just think they don't need God. So that's why what we read earlier in Matthew, where it talks about blessed are the poor, right? So, because then you have a more humble spirit. So now, some people want to get a certain amount of money, they forget about the struggle, they forget about everything else. They forget about the blessings that they got to get there. So that's why it says, because thou say I am rich, and increase with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art rich and miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked, right? Meaning, you know what I'm saying, you exposed, you know what I'm saying, you really think you, this person up here, but you really, you know what I'm saying, down here, you know. So, it says, let's get it, boom, boom, boom. I think I want, hold on, I think I want Chronicles really quick. No, that ain't it. I think it's in Corinthians. Yeah, okay, it's 1 Corinthians 4 and 8, right? It says, now ye are full, now ye are rich. Ye have reigned as kings without us, and would to God that he did reign, and that we also might reign with him. So, like I said, so when you have a certain amount of money, you know what I'm saying, it can go to your head, you know what I'm saying? So that's why it's important that we stay grounded, you know what I'm saying, and all that stuff. So, like I said, so this is basically just speaking on, like, you know, people, you know what I'm saying, just get to a certain point where they feel like they don't need God, right? And it says, blessed are they that mourn, for they should be comforted. Blessed are the meek, and for they should inherit the earth, right? So like I said, nobody in this world needs to be comforted more than our people. Our people have been destroyed throughout the years, right? So nobody needs to be comforted more than our people, right? And it says, and the meek shall inherit the earth, right? So like I said, we gotta keep that humble spirit. And it says, blessed are they which do hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Right? So you gotta always be on the search, looking for our knowledge, trying to, you know, increase your understanding and wisdom. Right? It says, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Right? And that's what we gotta be, especially amongst our people, because our people like to fight and argue over anything. So that's why it says, blessed are the peacemakers, they should be called the children of God. So a lot of times, you know, you have to, you know, put your life on the line just to try to stop, you know, two brothers or, you know, sisters from fighting and killing each other, right? You know, but then actually by law, you know, then you're not supposed to stand against the blood of your fellow Israelite. You know, you're required to do something, right? So, and so it says, blessed are the peacemakers. So like I said, we have to, you know, stop fighting each other, right? Learn how to be peacemakers, right? You know, so we got to learn how to be peacemakers. So a lot of times we just want to kill each other for whatever reason, you know what I'm saying? So that's what it's saying. So it's telling us to stop the black on black crime, stop trying to get over on each other, right? It says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they should be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness, for righteous sakes, for theirs is the kingdom of God, right? So, you know, we got a saying in the world, you know what I'm saying, you ain't doing nothing until you got haters, right? Or something like that, right? Or you nobody, you know what I'm saying, until somebody kill you, right? So, that's why it says, what was it? It says, blessed are they which are persecuted for righteous sakes. Meaning, you're not doing nothing to nobody, you know, you're not harming a fly. But then people, you know what I'm saying, they talk about you behind your back, they want to, you know, put you down, they want to, you know, treat you a certain type of way. So, that's why it says, blessed are ye when men shall follow you and persecute you and say all manners of evil against you falsely, right? For my sake. You know, and that's what happened to, especially when we start walking in this walk. You know, especially trying to, you know, start, you know, getting closer to God and all that stuff, right? Then you got people that don't want you to get closer to God. You know, and So they might either try to, make fun of you because you're getting closer to God, right? So, and that's what's going to happen. It's going to happen even more in these last days, because the, like you read in the Revelation, it tells you that the beast is going to make war with them that keep the laws of God, right? So, and that's not just verbally, talking about physically and all that extra stuff, what they call Jacob trouble, right? So, moving on, then, and it says, rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. Meaning, people always talk bad about people, right? You know what I'm saying? You always have haters. You always have people that wanted to hurt you and harm you for whatever reason, even if you did nothing to them. So these are saying, like, they did the same thing to the prophets. You know what I'm saying? In the old days, used to, beat them up, throw them in jail, curse them out. You hear stories like Jeremiah was in jail a couple times. I think they came to arrest Elijah. You know what I'm saying? So it's you see it all the time, right? So what's that? So he's saying for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. So like I said, they're just saying, look, they did it to the holy man of God too. So yeah, they'll do it to you. And it says, ye are the salt of the earth, right? And that's what we are. We are the salt of the earth, right? Nobody, is more talented than us. Nobody is more athletic than us. Nobody can sing better than us. Nobody can cook better than us. None of that, right? We are the salt of the earth. Hip hop is this big old $billion industry. Why? Because we are the salt of the earth, right? So nobody else got flavor like that. Nobody try to dress like how we dress, talk like how we talk. None of that, right? Why? Because it says, ye are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its savor, that's what happened. We had lost our savor, meaning we lost our flavor, man. We've been beaten and oppressed over here in these North Americas for like 400 some years, right? So we lost that savor, that thing that spices stuff up. Now even, because we not keeping the commandments, because we stopped keeping the laws of God. So then God allowed these different nations to whip us back in shape, right? And like I said, you can read about that in Deuteronomy, right? Where am I? So then, says, but if the salt had lost its savor, wherewith that thou be salted. Meaning, like, how you gonna, if you losing yourself spiritually, right? But how you gonna, you gotta, basically you gotta fix yourself, right? And we gotta change. Because if we just saw that the earth, we're supposed to be, how they say, let your light shine, right? You know what I'm saying? And not just that, because, we was just talking on the cardinal level as far as like how we're the best cooks, best athletes, best whatever you can think of. But spiritually, we're supposed to be leading the world, not just on some, I can't really say culture because they'll take it and they make more money off of it than we do. So it's like you see the influence that we got in the world, right? If we were doing what God asked us to do, how better the world would be, right? Put it in that context. So it says, but if thou have lost the savor wherein that be salted, it is henceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and to be trodden underfoot. And that's what happens. Since we stop obeying what God wants to do, we can see how our community is. You can see how our neighborhoods are. You can see how we is as a people collectively, right? It says, says, henceforth be good for nothing but to be cast out. And that's what happened to us, So now you see the music videos we like to make. You see the songs that we like to sing. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, as a culture, we have a destructive culture. That's why our people react and, and participate in the manners that they do because of this destructive culture we have, right? So, like I said, so we're supposed to be the salt of the earth, meaning when we influence things, we're supposed to be on a positive level, right? So, let's get, keep on. And it says, and ye are the light of the world, a city that is set on a hill that cannot be hidden. And that's the thing, we are the light of the world. We are the ones that are supposed to influence, things, right? We're the ones that are supposed to, and we do influence things, but that's just on a lower level. But talking about spiritually actually being the rulers of this earth, like how God designed it to be. Like, actually being the top hegemon, because that's the promise, right? But let me just find this one thing real quick. Right, so this is what I look for. Deuteronomy 4 and 6. So yeah, back to us being how it says that we are that light on the hill that can't be hidden. Because no matter what situation that we go through, we're the cream of the crop. We always want to get back, to the top and do what we got to do, right? Throughout the centuries of us being up here, they put up many type of, barricades and roadblocks and all that stuff, right? And we still managed to do the best what we had, right? And still end up competing, on a higher level, right? So, like I said, so understanding that, and like I said too, what brought me here, because like I said, we're supposed to, if we can affect the world in the way that we affect the world now, just imagine if we decide to keep the laws of God, right? So, then it says, this is Deuteronomy 4 and 6. Keep therefore and do them, talking about the law, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, right? So when other nations look at us, because they look at us anyway, even though a lot of them hate us, but they look at us anyway and see what the next cool thing is, right? So it says, for this is your wisdom and understanding, meaning when you keep in these laws, this becomes your wisdom and understanding, because God will broaden your understanding, right? And allow you to, understand this Bible more than what you have before, because the Holy Spirit will come and teach you, right? That's how it works. So, so it says, for this is your wisdom and understanding, right? Then as a teacher, like I said, it gives you, like I said, it broadens your understanding. Like it tells you, it says, making wise the simple, right? It says this will be your wisdom and understanding in the sight of the nations. Meaning when other nations look at us, they be like, wow, these people are very intelligent, they're very wise, they're, surely God is with them, right? It says, surely this is a great nation, wise and understanding people. So for what nation is there so great? Who have God so nigh to? Meaning who is, like, wow, like, what these nations, like, wow, they so, like, basically there's no wonder why God is close to us, right? So it says, let's read it again. For what nation is there so great who have God so much nigh to them as the Lord our God is all things we call upon for him, right? So like I said, so that's how I'm supposed to look at it. It's like we're this great understanding people, right? But sadly, oftentimes, they look at us as just a bunch of thugs, gangbangers, and drug addicts, right? So let's get alright, let's keep going. Alright, right. And it says alright, okay, right here. So then hold on. So I want to. Okay, let me read it again. So it says, so ye are the light of the world, a city that is set on a hill. Now, the thing, that thing done messed up on me. So I, camera went up for it real quick. So, now where was I? Alright. So then it says, neither do a man light a candle and put under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and give it light unto all that are in the house. Let your light shine before men, right? So, and that's what, and that's what you gotta do. Like I said, you gotta not hide what you know. That's why the Bible tells us, each one teach one, right? So, you can't, that's why I said, let your light shine. So, like I said, you know something, you got a little bit of wisdom or something, a little insight on something that you can share with somebody. You should let it shine. You should, let it be known, right? So then, hold on one second. Get some water. Get some water there. It's a lucky. Yeah. Alright. Alright, we back. So, it says, so we start back. It's Matthew 5 and 16. So, it says, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven, right? So, and that's how I'm opening this up. Yeah, it says, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So, and that's how, we should behave ourselves. Like I said, we show our good works, like you understand, have wisdom and understanding according to this book, don't be afraid to share it, because a lot of people are still caught up in that dogma that been taught to our people, since we've been over there. So, so we just, a lot of times we just have to, just present the evidence and give people, the choice to see what's up with it, and maybe they will want to check it out later, right? So it says, alright, so then it says, think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I have not come to destroy but to fulfill, right? So now this is important. This is like another verse that is, seriously and serially taken out of context all the time, right? Because people would take the last part of this verse and try to twist it. You know, but it says, "Think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I have not come to destroy, but to fulfill." So then they're like, "Well, yeah, Jesus fulfilled the law. That's what he did. He fulfilled the law." What does that mean? That means so since he did everything, you know, he kept the law. So that means I don't have to keep it no more. So say like I got a friend or a cousin or a brother, you know, that lived their whole life here in America and never been to jail, never got a ticket, never did anything wrong. So that means I'm cool now. You know what I'm saying? I don't gotta keep the law because he did it for me. I mean, so I can just go run a red light. You know what I'm saying? I don't gotta worry about getting no ticket. I could probably walk in the store and steal something. I ain't gotta get no ticket because my brother, my cousin, my friend, you know, they lived their whole life and kept the American law and never been to jail before. So why I gotta go to jail, right? So no, it don't make sense when you think it, when you actually, you know, slow it down and think about it, right? But yeah, that's what they'll twist up real quick. So let's get let's keep going. Matter of fact, it says, "For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass one jot or one tittle, shall no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled." Right? So Jesus taught the law, basically, you know, short and simple. And we know he taught the law because it says, "Think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill." So the law and the prophets, that's where the law is written at. And all the prophecies that go along with, you know, with everything, right? So, and then it's a lot of prophecies that been fulfilled, and it's a lot of prophecies that haven't been fulfilled yet. So all have not been fulfilled. Then it says, "Verily I say unto you, until heaven and earth pass." Have heaven and earth passed? Are we still here? Right? Can't we still look up and see the sky? See the sun and the moon and the stars? Right? So it says, "Till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle may no wise pass from the law, until all be fulfilled." One jot, one tittle meaning, like, you know, you can't erase the comma, you can't undot the I, don't, you know, uncross the T, like, none of that is going to happen. So this is, you know, to everything that is written happen, right? Because you got to understand how this thing is. This is basically a movie that we're living in, right? For lack of better terms. You know, this is the Most High God's movie. He wrote it a certain type of way. He said, okay, this is how I want this movie about my chosen people, you know, to play out. So then, like I said, so he wrote it out, created this whole big world, and all this cool stuff, and he wrote it out. So all that he said was going to happen has to happen, right? You know, when you have a movie, like when you're making a movie, then when you film that last scene, and the director say cut, that's a wrap. Meaning, you know, that's it, man, we done. You know what I'm saying? Let's go home and get paid, right? So he's saying until it's like that, all the stuff gotta, you know, be around, right? But again, that last part of the line is until all be fulfilled. So then, like I said, like certain Christian teachers will teach it, oh, well, yeah, see, he died on the cross, so it'll all been fulfilled, right? But again, there's a lot of prophecies that haven't been fulfilled yet, right? And even so, it's not telling us that we don't have to keep the law. So, let's get Second Corinthians up. Really quick. Second tree. Oh, yeah. Hold on. We'll come back to this. Let's get this one. Let's get Isaiah. So this is Isaiah 66 and 2. Just for all those things that have that my hand made, and all those things have been said, said the Lord. But this man I will look, even to him that is poor, and of the contrite spirit, and the trouble in my heart. I mean, in my word, right? In the trouble of my word. So, like I said, so again, it's going back to being that meek, person, not, being over, just thinking, thinking you all the way up here, and all that stuff, right? And, and it says, it says, even to him that is poor in the contrite spirit. So, meaning people that's like I said, living bad, out here bad, then you have that, then maybe you got a broken heart, broken spirit, maybe because of a loved one or whatever the case may be, you know what I'm saying? And so your spirit is down broken, right? So it says, but to this man I will look, and even to him whose spirit and his contrite, even him that is poor and of the contrite spirit and the tremble at my voice, says, so he's basically saying like he's going to heal those people that that he called his people, which is the Israelites, right? So let's get Luke. Get back. Okay, so now, alright, I see what happens. So now, so understand too, like, it says all be fulfilled, that's written in the prophets. So then it says, let's start at Luke 18:31. Then he took unto him the 12 and said unto them, behold, we go up to Jerusalem, and all things that are written by the prophets concerning the Son of Man shall be accomplished. Right? So they knew the prophecies, you know what I'm saying? So, and like I was going over a couple of days ago, that how, as we reading through Matthew being a Levite and he understands scriptures, he was, basically checking off like the different qualifications that it said that the Messiah will have when he comes, right? So it says, then he took unto him the 12 and said unto them, behold, we will go into Jerusalem, and all things that are written by the prophets concerning the Son of Man shall be accomplished. So like it says over there, but speaking here, this is what it notice said, all the things that written of the Son of Man. So it's just talking about the prophecies that's dealing with, the house shot, who the world calls Jesus Christ, right? So then it says, for he shall be deceived unto the Gentiles. He shall be delivered unto the Gentiles, and shall be mocked and spiteful, and threatened and spit at. And it says, for they shall scourge him and put him to death, and the third day he shall rise again. Right? So that had to happen. You know what I'm saying? Then not only did that have to happen, like I said, other things that surrounding, his arrival had to come to pass. So, like I said, but that's only what was written, concerning him, right? That's what you see here in Luke. So, like I said, so when we get back to the understanding of how I was talking about the different, with the prophecies that have to come to pass, right? So then, let's get a few more. Let's get a few more. You know what I'm saying? So we just getting a little precepts that go along with the few passages that we just read. Let's get Acts 3 and 18. It says, but those things which God before had showed unto the mouth of his prophets, that Christ should suffer and have so fulfilled. So that was the thing that he's supposed to fulfill too, as he, being here, right? So and those just the prophecies that's just dealing with him, let alone all the other prophecies that God pronounced on this world in His judgment. Still haven't came to pass yet, right? You have a whole book called Obadiah that have not happened yet, right? So all have not been fulfilled. So let's get let's keep going a little bit. And it says, okay, yeah, here we go. It says, but those things which God before showed by the mouth of his prophets that Christ should suffer, has so fulfilled, right? So that's what he fulfilled, and that's what he fulfilled. Highlight this real quick. So yeah, and the other healing people, all that stuff, that he fulfilled through the prophecies, but not all still haven't been fulfilled, right? This is Acts 21 and 23. It says, do therefore this that we say unto thee, for have 4 men which have a vow unto them, right? So this is talking about the Nazareth vow that some Israelites would take. I know you probably heard of the Nazareth, the law of the Nazareth, or where they grow their hair and they can't cut it or whatever. So certain they can't drink wine or have anything with grape juice in it. So that's a little vow that they take for a certain period of time or whatever, right? So this is what is basically, we probably ain't got it. I think you understand that all haven't been fulfilled. So this is just another, but yeah. So let's get some other stuff that haven't happened yet. Let's get Isaiah. Isaiah 51, and it says, "Hearken to me, ye follow after righteous that seek the Lord. Took a look unto the rock. Hence ye are shown by." Hold on, let me see. It says, "Hearken to me, ye that follow after righteousness, yet that seek the Lord. Look unto the rock. Hence we are shown into the hole of the pit which ye are dead." Right? Look unto Abraham your father. So we see this was talking about the Israelites, right? Then it says, Abraham your father, because the Israelites is, seed of Abraham. So it says, Sarah that bear you, for I call him along and bless him and increase him, right? So now this is a prophecy that was speaking about the Yahushua coming, right? And, saying and how he's, is restoring them, right? I mean, not restoring them, but, increasing them, giving them that power, right? So that haven't happened yet, because he came, right? And, he came and fulfilled that part of the prophecy of him coming, and healing the blind and being that living sacrifice. But then it's another, but then when he come again, he coming in the spirit of that, what they call the conquering lion, right? So let's get Let's get John 19 and 24. And it says, they said before among themselves, let us not rent it, but cast lots for it. Those who call it shall be, that the scriptures might be fulfilled, which said, they parted my garments among them, for my vesture did they cast lots. These things therefore the soldiers did, right? So, and what is John referring to is the scripture that's written in the Old Testament of how the Roman soldiers is going to be gambling over Christ's clothes. He was saying that was, a prophecy that they was going to do. So, like I said, so certain things have to be fulfilled concerning his, him being born, and then also his return. Then let's get Isaiah. Hold on, let me get this. And then this is what's going to happen when he returns. It says, it's Isaiah 60. And it says, behold, darkness shall cover the earth. And what is this darkness? This darkness is talking about lack of wisdom. Because when this, this obliqueness, or how I was saying the other day, like, when you watch that movie, what's that, Mad Max, Book of Eli, you know what I'm saying? Just, people just going to be this, because World War III is going to be the biggest thing ever, right? So this is post World War III, when the Israelites is back in their land, the real Israelites is back in the land, the dust settling, from World War III, everybody out here reckless. It says this, it says, behold, the darkness shall cover the earth. So it's just talking about people, this state of being, not just physical darkness, like when the sun is out, when the sun is not out, like this physical, like mental well-being, right? So it says, for behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and a gross darkness shall the people, gross darkness to people. But the Lord shall rise upon thee. So it's saying, it says, darkness, gross darkness the people, meaning too, we're going to be mentally unstable, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, people are going to be killing people for a loaf of bread, whatever they may got that they think is valuable or whatever. It's going to be a hard time, because the world is going to be like in a place that it never ever been before. So people are going to be losing their mind, and it's going to be crazy. So it says, gross darkness the people, but the Lord shall arise upon thee. Who is the thee? The Israelites. And his glory shall be seen upon thee. Right? Because remember, one of the first verses we read a little earlier was, the nations shall see us and say, wow, these are a great and understanding people. You know what I'm saying? Like, no wonder why they're so close to God. Right? So that's how they're supposed to look at us. So it says, the Gentiles shall see, the Gentiles shall come to thy light. Like we just read over here, it says, let your light shine before men. Then it says, the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and the kings of the earth, and the kings of brightness, thy rising, right? Let me read it right. It says, the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and the kings to the brightness of thy rising. Okay. So then, so yeah, that, well, like I said, in that day, they're gonna be, like I said, they're gonna be learning from us, right? They're gonna be getting the wisdom and understanding from us. So we're going to be that light in that day, and all the nations is going to want to come to us because they see how great we are, and they want to get down with the get down, right? So and it says, lift up thy eyes around about and see all they gather themselves together. They come to thee. Thy sons shall come from afar, and thy daughters shall be nursed at thy side. Meaning, they're gonna be, right? They be coming from all corners of the earth to, what I'm saying, to lend a hand, so to speak, right? Then it says, then they shall see and float together, and thy heart shall fear and be enlarged, because the abundance of the sea shall be converted unto thee. Right? So they're gonna have to give it. They're gonna be paying tribute, right? They're gonna be paying, taxes, Lord, so to speak, to us, right? So that's why it says. That's why it says. Where am I? Boom, boom, boom. It says. Shall flow. And shall float together, and thy heart shall fear and be enlarged. Meaning, we just gonna be getting super blessed, where we just gonna just be overjoyed. That's what it means by the heart to, be enlarged. Because the abundance of the sea shall be converted unto thee. Right? So meaning everything they got, they're gonna have to give it up, and they're gonna be giving it up gladly. Right? Then it says. The multitude of the camels shall cover thee, and so the purpose is basically we read that to demonstrate that certain prophecies have to happen. This is an end time prophecy. This haven't happened yet, right? So then let's get one more then. Okay, Jeremiah 31 and 36. Okay, Jeremiah 31:36 says, If those ordinances depart from before me, said the Lord, then the seed of Israel shall cease from being a nation before me. So God is speaking on the law, talking about if anything in the law where it says depart from before me, meaning if I'm not talking about the law anymore, then Israel will cease from being a nation. And we're still here, right? So we ain't going nowhere. Probably couldn't tell because they ain't walking nowhere. Hey, that's that Murphy Lee. But like what he say? Like we ain't going nowhere. Wait, I ain't going no. Wait, what I said? Like yeah. Probably couldn't tell because I ain't walking nowhere. But yeah, right. So yeah. So like I said, so even God saying that the law is still here, right? And where we at? Boom, boom, boom. So yeah. So verse 19. So it says, "Whosoever therefore say shall break one of the least commandments." And that's what it is sometimes, that it says, because, you go to church and they tell you, like, oh, yeah, you can't keep the law, it's hard to keep the law, nobody can keep the law, but, let's just say, focus on the goddess for a quick second. A beard, right, that's part of the law. That's not hard to do. You know what I'm saying? You grow a beard every day, just don't shave it, or you can, not shave it off. You can keep it, just don't really go into the natural lining of it. You know what I'm saying? You can trim it, you can grow it big, or whatever how you want to do. Right? That's not a hard law to keep. Fringes. Buying, getting you some fringes. You can get you some. That's not hard to do. You know what I'm saying? It's just a couple of clicks on on these internets, right? Then what else? Like I said, it's not hard. You know what I'm saying? So But like I said, but we've been taught that we don't have to keep the law. So and it says, whosoever shall break one of these least commandments, right? So like I said, you don't want to, the least commandments, because they tell you you don't have to do nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially here in America, a lot of jobs require you to shave your beard, right? So you can get like a letter, requesting that you don't shave your beard, and that's why too a lot of our people, they end up getting those little nasty razor bumps, shaving bumps, because they shaving their beard. You're not naturally supposed to do that, right? So, like I said, so it's like it's not hard. That's the point. So then, like I said, I mean, there's other commandments too, but like it says the least, so we're just thinking of the least, and it says, "Shall teach men that he shall, and teach men to do so." Meaning, if you're teaching people it's not cool to, you don't have to keep the law. Don't worry about the law. Jesus fulfilled it. Then, the Bible is telling you not to do that, right? So Jesus is telling you not to do that. Yahweh Shai, right, says, Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach man to do so, he shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. So you don't want to be the least in the kingdom of heaven, right? That's not cool, right? It's like probably like borderline slavery again, to be the least in the kingdom of heaven, right? So, but a lot of our people is going around teaching those things, right? And so it says, whosoever therefore break one of the least of these commandments and shall teach men to do so, shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever teach men, teach and do them, shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So again, we see that we are being told to keep the commandments, and that way we can be called great in the kingdom of heaven. But we have an institution set up that operates every Sunday that tells you that you don't have to keep the commandments. But Jesus out of his own mouth is telling you that you have to keep the commandments. Why would he lie to us? That's the question we gotta ask. Why would he lie? Because some people will say, well, when he died, now you ain't gotta keep it. So like, why would he not just say, hey, look, yo, I'm gonna die, right? And when I die, don't keep the commandments. Why would he not say that? Instead, he says, but whosoever shall do and teach them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven, right? That's the thing. And so that's how these churches, when these 501c that they get, that they're not allowed to actually speak on certain things and teach the Bible correctly, because if they were, they'd be teaching the law, but they can't teach the law in these churches, So it says, for I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. Amen. It says, for I say unto you, except your righteousness shall succeed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, ye shall no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. So what did that mean? So, because we know what Yahweh said about the Pharisees and the scribes, he was saying that they was teaching people to keep the law, but they wasn't keeping the law, right? That's basically to get down with them. So he's saying here, if unless you got to do better than what they was doing, like you got to do better what they was doing, because they was teaching the law, but they wasn't keeping the law, right? And like I said, it's not that hard. Like, sure, you're not gonna be able to do everything all at once, but certain things that that you can stop immediately, you can do that, right? So then, so it says, except your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. So yeah, so basically saying you gotta do better than these dudes. I mean, they was teaching the people right, but they wasn't doing it themselves, you know. So then it says, and ye heard that it was said by them of old times that thou should not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of judgment. But I say unto you, whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of judgment. Right? So think about that, right? I'm gonna get to the other point too. So it says, you heard whosoever kills should be in danger of judgment, right? So that's the law. He's quoting the law. So he's teaching them the law. So he's not teaching them not to kill somebody. He's not teaching them not to keep the law. He's taking one part of he's taking one of the laws and making a lesson out of it. Just giving a parable or a teaching on it. So it says then he says shall kill should be in danger of judgment. So like I said, that goes back to the law that the Israelites got, what they call like the Ten Commandments and all that, right? So it says, so what he's basically doing is giving more insight on the law, like giving, breaking it all down, like, actually giving you a deeper understanding of it. And, so he's not teaching against it. He's actually explaining it and telling you how, how, much of a sin it is, right? Because one can look at it as like, where it say, one can look at it as where it says, whosoever is angry with his brother. So, because one can look at it as like, like, how I want to explain it, like, says, hold on, read it again. Yeah, but alright, yeah, so one can look at it as like, cause far as like once that thought enter into your mind, like like once that thought enter your mind, then so you start processing how much you dislike this person, how much you want to hurt this person, then all of a sudden you start thinking about killing this person. So like I said, so that's why he says, whosoever is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of judgment. Because like I said, the person didn't even do nothing to you because it says without cause. Meaning you just hating on this person. You just angry at this person because they existed for whatever reason, right? So that's like, that's thoughts of a murderer, right? So then it says, shall be in without cause shall be in danger of judgment, and whosoever shall say to his brother Rakah shall be in danger of counsel, right? So that's a Hebrew word that's basically disrespecting somebody, right, for no reason. And it says shall be in danger of counsel, but whosoever shall say thou fool shall be in danger of hell fire, right? So like I said, so this is basically teaching how to love, each other. Don't be talking about each other. You know what I'm saying? Don't be saying little slick things and hurtful things about each other, right? Don't be threatening each other. You know what I'm saying? Don't be trying to cause violence to each other. Because all those acts can lead to you being, what it says, uh, whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause in danger of judgment, right? So yeah, it can lead to that, judgment, Then it says, therefore shalt thou bring thy gift unto the altar, and there remembers that thou brother have aught against thee. Leave there thy gift before the altar, go thy way, for reconcile to thy brother, and then offer thy gift. So it's basically saying, if you got, don't be trying to sit up in church. I'm putting it in modern, right? Because we're not sacrificing in these days, if we don't have a temple. So it's like, you in church, you go to church with all types of hell in you, then you leave church with all types of hell in you. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what goes on in a lot of these Christian churches, right? So it says, therefore thou bring thy gift unto the altar, meaning like you in a place of worship, and there remembers that thou brother have aught against you, meaning you in church and now you see somebody that you don't like, you got beef with them. Then it says, leave thy gift before the altar and go thy way. First be reconciled unto thy brother. Meaning, look, God don't even want you in, like, even if going to church on Sunday was the right thing to do, God don't even want you in the building. Because it says, just leave your gift and go make up with your brother, basically, right? Go fix that problem, whatever you got with that person, before you come into the temple to try to worship. But how many people go to church crazy as hell and leave church crazy as hell, right? So that's because we don't know what Jesus taught. You know what I'm saying? Pastor don't tell you this is what we're doing right here. This is what this chapter is. We're going over what Jesus is teaching. And we see that he's teaching the law, right? He's teaching the law. Like, he's telling you how not to be a murderer and how to care for one another, right? That's what he's teaching you, right? So, and guess where you find that concept at? In the law. So yes, Jesus taught the law, right? So it says, so back over here, and it says, agree with thy adversary quickly, while thou art in the way with him, right? So it's saying, agree with your adversary quickly. When you say, like, they catch you off guard, they got the drop on you, they can do whatever they want to. They can jump you, stab you, shoot you, whatever they want to do, right? So he said, when you're in those situations, he said, agree with your adversary quickly. A lot of times our people, saying we, got that heart of a warrior in us, against all odds. Saying we got Tupac playing in the background. Against all odds, that really should have ever wrote. You know what I'm talking about. Against all odds, playing in their head. Instead of just looking at the situation, like, all right, you got it. I see you again. When it's a little more even, right? But no, we get into situations, and a lot of times we're so concerned about proving that we're not a punk, because the other person gonna get on social media and I guess brag about how they made you run off, and thousands or whoever people gonna see it. So then so people be concerned about that, right? But the Bible says fix those problems with each other, right? And that's what we gotta do, is fix those problems. That's why it says, agree with thy adversary quickly while thou art in the way of him, lest any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into a prison. Meaning, like, especially now, especially too, like, dealing with, you gotta pick your battles with the police too. I know this might, people that know, if you know, I know this sounds a little crazy for me saying it, but I do pick my battles with the police. I know, I just don't be, I got a little common sense, it sounds like I'm going crazy, but I be speaking their language. But anyway, that's besides the point. So, So when you in those type of situations, you gotta be, you know, careful with your words, knowing that at that moment, you know, whether it's the police or somebody you got beef with, they got your life in their hands at that moment because they caught you off guard. So basically saying be wise and, you know, try to get out of situations safely as possible. You don't always have to be Stone Cold Steve Austin beating up a whole ring of people, right? So moving on. And it says, agree with thy adversary quickly while thou art in the way of him, lest any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. So then, like I said, a lot of times you gotta spend the night in jail. I mean, because you let the police, you know, provoke you, even though they do be provoking you. Sometimes you gotta get them, but you know, sometimes they provoke you because they're trying to get a bigger charge. So you just gotta be careful, because then as soon as they get you to do something, then like it says, and thou be cast into prison, right? But then it says, verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out hence until thou hast paid the uttermost flattering. And ye heard that. So meaning, make up with the person, make sure y'all all really good. Don't just say after you say you make up with this person, you say y'all good, but you really ain't good. You got some feelings that you harboring. You know what I'm saying? Because what people don't understand, like when you at that stage where you're trying to squash everything, that's the time to let everything out. You know what I'm saying? Like, or you can, you know, tell the person how to live, boom, boom, boom. But a lot of times, try to make it with a person, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people are like, you know, I don't really care what happened, you know what I'm saying? It's good, you know what I'm saying? Don't worry about it, right? So then sometimes you end up not having a conversation that need to be had. Then in between, that person that, you know, said that they really don't want to talk about it, you know, y'all good, y'all really ain't good, you know what I'm saying? So, trust me, I know, like, shit, I was like 24, 25, something like that. So I was this one I was smoking used to smoke weed. So about like I said 24, right? So this dude I was buying weed from, right? You know, so I go get it. You know, I knew him since we was, you know, kids or whatever, right? We was cool. You know, so then I go get some weed from him one day, and he like drunk, right? He got a gun, and so he kind of pulled a gun out. You know, he didn't point it at me. He just flashed it to me, like, and want to bring up some shit that we was like down there, like 13, maybe 14, like about 13 years old, 13, maybe 14 years old. So, and I'm looking like, dude, that's like, we was barely in high school then. I'm like, and then, we like 24, 25. I'm thinking like, man, we grown now. But, so we got into a fight, when we was like 13. So, and of course I won. So then, like I said, so now like, then 10 years later, after graduation, all that stuff, you know what I'm saying? This man gets a little look at him, and he want to reminisce about the time I have to put the hands on him. And then, like I said, he didn't point the gun at me, he was flash, he just kind of showed me that it was on the tip. And then he was like, man, that's, like, yeah, I can, just talking about, he did say that he can shoot me. But, like me being, I knew that he was drunk, he can barely stand up, so, and I'm like, the way that it was, it wasn't no way that he could have, got a chance to shoot me, because like I said, he was too drunk, he could barely stand up. Then he wouldn't have had time to do all that movement. But, so yeah, I'm just kind of, so I say all that to say, I kind of just brushed it off and ignored him. I'm like, dude, just give me the weed, But I knew that he was drunk, and like I said, so I knew that, that he was just in his emotions for whatever reason. Now, if I was in a different mindset, and I know he got the thing on him, and I know he can't get to it because he like kind of sloppy drunk. So, and then I'm already like right there with him, just an arm reach out. You know how close weed deals be sometimes we be standing in a close spot. So So now, if I was on that, I could have, took real offense to that, like how most people would, like the person flashing a gun, he just threatened to shoot you. I mean, even though I know, probably since I know him, and I know that he just talking drunk and emotional, that's probably why more so I ignored it, you know. But I know normally a person won't. That's not something people would take lightly, and normally I wouldn't take lightly. But I kind of assessed the situation because I could have just overreacted, did a man bad in that hallway, then told the police that he threatened, right? So, like I said, so that's why you gotta, when you make up with somebody, make sure everything is cool, you know. You see, then we have boom, boom, boom. It says, and ye heard if, all right, verse 27, 5 and 27. Ye heard if it was said by them of old time that thou should not commit adultery. What is that said from the old time? That's the law. And where do you find adultery law? In the law of Moses, in the first 5 books that the pastor tells you that you don't have to keep, but we keep seeing that Jesus is teaching law here. He's not making up stuff, right? And it says, but I say unto you, whosoever look upon a woman to lust after her have committed adultery with her already in his heart. So what does this mean? This is another verse that's often taken out of context. So what does this mean? Okay, so this means if I see a married woman, I know she got a man, but I'm looking at her, I'm dressing her with my eyes, thinking how I would like to be with her, right? That's lusting with your eyes. People would take this verse and think that you see a beautiful woman or somebody that you're attracted to, you're not allowed to, feel a certain type of way. But, I mean, it's a difference if you know this woman that you're looking at is already taken, like she already got a man. Then that's when you're wrong, because now you're lusting after somebody else's woman. Which that's like breaking 2 commandments together, technically, because you got thou should not covet thy neighbor's wife, and then this one of adultery that Christ is teaching right here. So it says, but I say unto you, whosoever look on a woman to lust after her have committed adultery with her already in his heart. Meaning, because you imagine and you know what you want to do. You're looking at her, you're undressing her with your eyes. And this is a married woman, right? So, now, not saying that you should be out here, but so just, but it's not talking about the average woman that you might see and you might be physically attracted to. But, long as she's not married or have, long as she don't have a boyfriend or, a man, married or whatever you want to call it, right? So, then it says, where am I? It says, but I say unto you, okay, I keep losing my spot. It says, and if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it before thee, for it is profitable that thee have one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast unto hell, right? Meaning, sometimes you gotta sacrifice something that you really love, you know what I'm saying? If you wanna, try to stay on the straight and narrow, right? So, like I said, it can be, whether it's a, like a habit that you got that you, that you wanna, stop doing or whatever, or any type of what's the word I was looking for earlier? Any type of things that's hindering you from staying on a straight and narrow path. You know what I'm saying? You have to cut it off. You know what I'm saying? It might be something that you like to do. You know what I'm saying? But you have to cut it off, right? So cut it off if it's distracting you from staying on that right path. A lot of our people don't even understand sometimes what caused them to stumble. You know what I'm saying? Then they end up in certain predicaments. Often because they're not figuring out how they keep getting back there. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I says if it offend you, cut it off. But certain things just not working. You just gotta understand that. It's like certain things that you might think is cool, but it ain't cool. You know what I'm saying? So certain things just don't be working. So certain things gotta cut off. Then it could be a family member. It could be friends. It could be whoever. You gotta cut it off, right? If it's causing you to be distracted on staying on a straight and narrow, right? So then it says, if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that the whole body should be cast into hell, right? So again, so like just making that sacrifice and making that hard decision, like what, I'm gonna stop doing this because this is getting me distracted. Then once I do that, then I start doing this, then I start doing that. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta recognize what it is that be slipping you up sometimes. That's, like we said earlier, the Bible says that the wicked don't understand why they fall. So we can't, we can't, fall into that category. We gotta always be assessing things, making sure, you stand and doing what the right thing is, and that's keeping the law and the faith, right? So, and it says, it has been said, whosoever put his wife away, let him give her a writing of divorcement, right? So this is going back to the Moses law. Now this is not in the Ten Commandments. So not only did he teach a few from the Ten Commandments, he also is going to the other commandments. So this is the law of divorcement. And so Moses had wrote a law, after the Israelites came out. This was like one of what you might call in America, like a amendment. You know what I'm saying? So put this law in for divorce. Because and we're gonna see that divorce wasn't initially part of the law; it was added on to it because our people was complaining. Sort of like how we do now about niggas ain't shit, black women is the devil, or whatever, right? So how we go at each other, now. So the same way. So Moses said, all right, since y'all doing all this complaining, I know we just came out of Egypt. Some of y'all still got y'all wretched ghetto ways from Egypt. So all right, cool. It's cool for y'all to get a divorce. But anyway, so then, but I say unto you, whosoever put away his wife, saving for a cause of fornication. So like I said, you can't divorce your wife because you don't like how she is anymore. You can't divorce your wife because she don't cook or clean or whatever she should. If she able to, she know how, but she don't cook or clean or whatever, right? So you can't divorce your wife because you just don't like it no more. Only way you can divorce your wife is she commits some type of fornication, and that is whether she cheat on you, get real, have like incest with a family member, any type of homosexuality, and if she just one of the little nasty freaks that's into bestiality, right? So those is what is called fornication. right? Because a lot of times, like I said, we went over this too a while back. You know, we've been taught that fornicating is just having sex without marriage, but as we were going through briefly the other day, that sex is marriage, right? You know, the act of sex is the consummation of the marriage. As you know, we was reading when we read the first couple chapters of Matthew, right? And then, so yeah, so then it says, cause her to commit adultery. So now you put her away. Now you're not dealing with her. Now she's stuck at the house, lonely, and all that stuff. So then she ended up answering that dude that been texting her phone the whole time. She was trying to stay faithful to your punk ass. Then she ended up cheating with her. So now cause her to end up committing adultery. All because you put her away and wasn't dealing with her. You was being distant with her. Then and giving her the cold shoulder. So then she ended up dipping off. So essentially, the Bible is kind of charging that to you. Well, if you put her away like that, then you allow her to, like, if you stop dealing with her in such a way that causes her to go and sleep with another man while you're still married, right? So it says, cause her to commit adultery, and whosoever shall marry her, that is divorced, committeth adultery. So he was saying, like, you stop dealing with this woman, because that's the thing too, because in our culture, if you get divorced, that's not like, that make, in the word of Kevin Samuels, that make you go down in points, right? In this society, you get a divorce, that's a green light for people, like, oh, they got a divorce. But in our culture, how it was being then, if you got a divorce, it's like damn, what's wrong with you? You know what I'm saying? Like, what y'all get a divorce for? So kind of, it's not as celebrated. So, it says, cause her to commit adultery, and whosoever shall marry her, that is the divorce, commit adultery, because she's still, technically married to you. Because that's another point I wanted to bring up when I start talking about how we look at it. Like she, like I said, so because she's still your woman. You know what I'm saying? Because like sex is marriage. So once she decides to lay down with that other guy, that becomes her husband now, and now you technically can't. No, ain't no technically. Now you can't sleep with her because now you'll be committing adultery after she don't commit adultery. So this a whole snowball effect of this bad stuff that God said He don't want to happen, and this is what Jesus is teaching, right? So, and that is the law. So Jesus taught the law, and like I said, church do not go over what Jesus taught. They just tell you, oh, Jesus died for your sins, Jesus loved you, but they never actually teach you what He taught. And that's what we're doing right now. We're actually reading what He taught, and as we slow it down, we see that this man taught the law. So think about it like this. So you think you're going to teach the law his whole life, then don't tell us not before, like his whole life, never told us not to keep the law. But then He died. So, but secretly He wanted us to keep the law. He just didn't say it in His earthly ministry, because that's what they'll teach you in church. Like, oh, well, that's because when He was on earth, He kept the law, but now that he died, we ain't got to keep the law. I'm like, that's not, it doesn't work like that, right? So, and it says, again, I say, He heard that it has been said by him that of old time thou not forswear thyself, but thou shalt perform unto the Lord thy oaths. Meaning, you know what I'm saying, like, don't be, because our people do this all the time, like, we be like, oh, like, man, I promised to God, if such and such happened, that I'm going to do blah, blah, blah. God, please, if you do blah blah blah, I'm gonna do such and such, right? We do that all the time, but then when that time come to pass, we don't do what we said we're gonna do, right? So this is another law that is not in the Ten Commandments. This is part of what some will call the 600 and something laws, that we have. So it says, again, ye heard that it hath been said by him of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but thou perform unto the Lord thy oath, right? And that's another thing. A lot of times we promise people, like, man, I got you as soon as I get it. Then when you get it, you ain't got them. You know what I'm saying? So that's another thing. So basically saying too, breaking promises to people. I mean, I know sometimes, certain things happen where people are not allowed, able to do, what they actually said they was going to do, depending on what type of events that transpire. But the ones that are able to do what they're supposed to do and can do what they're supposed to do, but they don't do what they're supposed to do, it says, that you're supposed to, if you, whatever you basically put your word on, you're supposed to stand by it. Like Scarface say, all I got is my balls and my word. So then it says, again, again ye have heard that it has been said by them of old time, thou not forswear thyself, but thou shalt perform unto the Lord thy oath. And it says, but I saw unto you, swear not all that, neither be by heaven, for it is God's throne. Meaning, so don't be, swearing on God, then it says, people like, man, I swear to God, right? So don't do that. Don't be that guy. It says, but I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king, right? So it said, don't even swear on your city. You know what I'm saying? People be like Crip Mac always putting it on 55th, right? On 55. So the Bible says don't put it on your don't put it on your set, basically. It says nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, which is the city of the Israelites, the capital, for it is the city of the great king. But yeah, so, what I'm saying, don't be putting it on your head, what I'm saying, don't be stacking it on Jerusalem, none of that, right? So it says, but let your communication be, yea, yea, nay, nay, for whatsoever is more than these, cometh vow, right? So, like I said, it's talking about being peaceful with people, you know what I'm saying? And not just being peaceful, but being straight up, you know what I'm saying? Don't be, if you're going to say yes, say yes. If you're going to say no, say no. Don't be, being around the bush, being all shifty, being all, unclear, because it says, we're going to keep reading, it says, let your communication be yea, yea, meaning yes, yes, or nay, nay, no, no. For whatsoever is more than these cometh evil. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be clear in your speech, because that's the spirit of being deceptive. When you're not, stating your claim and on what you, what your conversation is, or how you feel about certain things, right? So basically saying be honest, right? So it says, it says, you have heard it have been said, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on the cheek, turn him the other also. right? So this the turn the other cheek thing, right? A lot of people, you know what I'm saying? This is basically saying forgive, that person, right? And all the way forgive them. Just don't be like, alright, that's cool, but when it really ain't cool, like we were speaking about earlier. So that's what it means by turn the other cheek, meaning like you're gonna give them another chance to prove themselves. You're gonna give them another opportunity. That's what it means by turning a cheek, not literally somebody smacking you, then you give them the other cheek to smack. That's not what it's talking about. Somebody did something wrong to you, then they apologize, you accept it, then you give them another chance. That's it. So then, it says, and if any man will sue thee at law, take away thy coat and let him thy coat also. And whosoever shall compel these to go a mile, go with them twice or twine, right? So basically saying like, look, if you know you're wrong, just admit that you're wrong and make it good. That's what it means by what it says. If a where is that? We'll talk about says fine. It says if any man will sue thee. So anybody try to sue you. So it's basically saying like if you know that you're wrong, just admit that you're wrong and do the necessary to repair it, because what's essentially happening when somebody sues you, they're getting the necessary recompense for them to rectify the problem, right? So if you know you're wrong, you admit you're wrong, and you do what you have to do, you ain't gotta go to no court anyway to far as getting sued, right? So it says it says, and if any man will sue thee at the law, take away thy coat and let him have thy cloak. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twine. So meaning like somebody needs your help, just don't be talking mess the whole time you're helping them, making them feel bad or whatever. Or, so be a help, meaning whatever you can, possibly do, you just go further, right? And a lot of our people got that attitude like, man, I ain't about to go above and beyond for this nigga or whatever, right? But the Bible's asking you, Jesus is teaching you to go above and beyond for each other, right? So it says, whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twice. Twine, right? So, like I said, so that's what you gotta do. There's nothing wrong with being a good friend, right? Or a good, helper. Or a good Samaritan, or whatever, how you want to break it down. There's nothing wrong with that. Then it says, give unto him that asked thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, and not turn away. That's another law. These are different laws within the Mosaic law that Christ is teaching. So, and it's telling you, if you know you got it, somebody come and borrow, like, hey, let me borrow $20 from you, and you know you got the $20 to borrow, but you tell them nah, like nah, I ain't got it, right? But you know you got it. You know what I'm saying? I don't mean like you got it, meaning you got it in your pocket, meaning you have enough money to do what you need to do, and you're able to loan somebody $20, right? That's what I'm talking about, right? So it says, and it says, yeah, we can go to the next one. It says, ye after heard that it has been said, thou love thy neighbor and hate thy enemy. right? So now this is not talking about, a lot of people want to probably use this and say, yeah, your enemy. So we can't call them people the devil, or we can't talk about these different nations because he said love your enemy. He's talking about your enemy amongst yourselves. All these laws that he's been teaching is from the Mosaic law, right? And it was about how the Israelites should treat each other when they're in their land, and how they should operate their nation as a people, right? So it says, love thy neighbor and hate thy enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemy, and bless them that curse you, and do good unto them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Right? So now this is from the law. Right? It's a law where it tells you, if thy neighbor ox fall into a ditch. I mean, if your enemy ox, your enemy ox fall into a ditch, right? And you see it, you're supposed to help them. Like, so in today's term, like if you're driving down the street and you see somebody you don't like, they got a flat tire, or their car smoking, you know what I'm saying? You ain't supposed to ride by the horn and blow it 2 times and say ha ha, you know what I'm saying? Or nothing like that. You're supposed to, see if they need some help. And why? Because if you sometimes certain acts that's how sometimes people end up being cool. We hear stories all the time where people say, yeah, I never liked such and such until this happened, or me and such never got along, but then one day blah 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 happened. So, and that's how you end up being cool, back with each other, right? So that's what the whole, like, if the law is done and we have that softness and not, so, angry towards each other, that's how it will play out. Like, I see somebody, one of my people, I don't like this person, but I see they need help, so I'm gonna help them. Then one day, like I said, then they're gonna see that, and then sometimes you're gonna make them feel like an asshole. Like, man, I don't know why they even like that person. They really cool. You know what I'm saying? So that's what happened. So then right, man, boom, boom, boom. Then it says but I say unto you, love your enemy and bless them that curse you, and do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. So we just kind of basically, broke that down what that means. And it says that ye may be the children of the Father which is in heaven, and for to make his sun rise and the evil and the good. But hold on, you go back up here. It says, for ye may be says, so Christ just gave us a list of things to do to our fellow people that look like us, and how not to hate them. Then it says that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven, right? So now, when you go to 1 John, it tells you how it says, and we know that we love God when we love His people, which is the Israelites, and keep the commandments. So this is basically, when you can say that's where basically John kind of took, got that, that from this teaching right here. And so, like I said, but that verse tells you to keep the commandments, because this is how you know that you love the children of God and God, when you keep the commandments. It tells you that, right? And so, again, we're getting taught to keep the commandments. Then it says ye may be the children of the Father which is in heaven, for he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain in the just and on the unjust. Meaning, you see the good and the bad, basically, right? You look at the good and the bad. That's what it, is basically saying when it says, he sendeth the rain on the just and on the unjust. Also meaning too, like, God, he got, like I said, he sees everybody. He's in control of every aspect of people's lives, whether they're good or bad, right? So, and it's showing you that his sovereignty, So it says, for he maketh the sun rise on the evil and on the good. Meaning, we are, because, of course, we all on this earth, the good and the bad. So basically saying, like I said, he there's nothing that he don't know. He see the good and the evil, and he reigns over, and he's the God of both. You know what I'm saying? What I mean by the God of both, meaning he's in control of, both, and can do whatever he wants to, either, the good people or the evil people, right? So then, he says, for ye love them which love you, that reward ye have, right? What reward, ye have. So meaning, if you only cool with the people that's cool with you, you know what I'm saying? And it's the tripped out part is like, our people, some summers ago spent the whole summer talking about singing that Drake song, no new friends, no new friends. But then, oftentimes they always complain about how they ain't got no friends, right? So, it says, for if ye love them which love you, what reward ye have. So, if you only going around just being cool with the people that you're cool with, you know what I'm saying, and you're like, oh, well, I don't know them over there, I don't mess with them over there. So then, you might, in your little circle of people that you choose to speak to, you might seem friendly and cool with them, but those are people that you're comfortable with and and so Jesus is saying, Yahweh is saying, just because you, in your circle of people that you typically speak to and say hello to, just because you, is, comfortable in that, you feel the love from the greetings that you have with these people, that don't make you a good person. Because if you're not willing to do that to a person that you don't know, and show them that same type of warmth that you'll show your friend when you speak to them, you know what I'm saying? So he said it, so it don't mean nothing. So a lot of times our people, like I said, if we don't know you, you know what I'm saying, we probably ain't gonna speak to you. You know what I'm saying? But you shouldn't do it like that. Because he's saying don't, the same energy you have for when you talk to your friends, you should have when you greeting somebody that you don't know, right? Oftentimes we see each other, and then we be sizing each other up, you know what I'm saying, trying to see, thinking about causing some type of harm to each other, when we don't know each other. But then once we get to know each other, like we said earlier, it's like, oh man, I didn't even like you at first. Then so there's a big laugh, right? So, and it says, let's get Hebrews 10 and 24. And let us consider one another. Let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works. So, like I said, and the love is keeping the commandments of God, and those good works is doing the law, right? So it says, let us consider one another. Meaning, like I said, don't have that hatred for one another, right? That mean mugging when you see somebody on the street you don't know. You know what I'm saying? You mean mugging. Giving them, looking at them like if they do something out of line, you're gonna, you're willing to take their head off, right? So that's why it says, let us consider each other, meaning be, joyful for each other. I know our people can act up a lot of times, especially they got, they just messed up, they've been drinking or whatever the case may be. So our people can act up. So then we often say, like, man, I don't like to be with a whole bunch of black folks, because we have, but we have to learn how to love each other. Once we get this understanding of what Yahweh, who the world calls Christ, Jesus, is teaching here, right? Then, and we all say we follow Christ, so then we should want to know what he taught, right? So then, and it says, back to, let's get back to Matthew 6, 5 and, go back to 46. For ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the publican do the same? So it's saying, like, just like how these politicians be waving and speaking to everybody like it's all cool, you know what I'm saying? Like, they do the same thing. The politicians is crooked, they ain't like nobody. So Jesus is saying, like, if you can speak to your friends and be cool with them, I'm saying, you see a fellow black person, brown person, say what's up to them. Don't be all, having attitudes and not want to speak to nobody. So then it says, let's get this really quick. Let's get Psalms 37 and 37, I think. So it says, mark the perfect man, and behold the upright, for the end of that man is peace. Right? So, like I said, so when being friendly, I'm not saying be like naive, it's a difference. But you know what I'm saying? Not being like stuck up and all that stuff, like I said. You get to know people get to know you, all that stuff. And it says, right here it says, mark the perfect man, and behold the upright, and the end of that man which is peace. Right? So it's basically telling you, how to recognize a good person, a righteous person. Someone that's keeping the law, because it tells you that mark the perfect man. And a lot of people will take that word perfect because we have a Eurocentric, westernized way of thinking about the Bible. So when we see the word perfect, we think, never made a mistake. But no, the word perfect just means to keep the laws of God, right? So let's prove that real quick. So it says, the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. So when it says mark the perfect man, it's telling you that perfect man is the one that's keeping the laws of God. And it's not perfect in the sense of never made a mistake. It's talking about this. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. So when you keep the law, that's what makes you perfect. And it says, the testimony of Yahweh is sure, making wise the simple. I think I mentioned this a little earlier, this verse. So making wise the simple, meaning when you start keeping the laws, doing what God wants you to do, getting, coming closer to Him, He start broadening your understanding and giving you the wisdom and knowledge that He wants you to know. Right? So moving on, let's get well, that's it, right? So then, back to here, it says, Matthew 5 and 48, be ye perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect, right? So now Jesus is telling us to be perfect. And we know perfect is the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. So He's telling us to keep the laws. So you go to church, pastor tell you don't keep the laws. This whole chapter is basically Him telling us to keep the law. Then He ended by saying, be ye perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. So now, unless Jesus is this trickster, or He likes to lie and trick people and, deceive people, why is He telling us to be perfect if perfect is what we think in our Eurocentric, westernized understanding of the Bible? When the Bible is an Eastern book, dealing with an Eastern ancient culture. So you cannot take your New World philosophy and westernized understanding to try to understand what the book is saying, because that is what they call a culture clash. Because the culture that you're coming from and seeing the world, the lens that you see the world through, is not the same way how the Hebrews that wrote this Bible saw it. So you have to, that's going to give you a misunderstanding every time when you come from that angle, right? So it says, be ye perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. So it's telling us to be perfect and keep the law. Because it tells you right here that the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. Right? So He taught the law. So I know it sounds like I'm repeating myself, because I have to stress the point, because we've been taught that we don't have to keep the law. But we've been reading 48 verses of him telling us to keep the law. Right? So the conclusion is yes, he taught us to teach the law, right? So when you go to church and pastor talk about how he nailed it on a cross, you know he's lying and don't understand the Bible, because we see that Jesus is teaching to keep the law. He never taught us that we don't have to keep the law. We just read a whole chapter about the law. And if it was somewhere in the law that tells us that we don't have to keep the law, then I think he would have kind of addressed that. Because I think that's a, important point of the thing. I think that's something that you can probably lead off with when you're trying to explain the law. If you think you don't got to keep the law, that's a point that you can kind of throw up in the beginning of what you're saying, right? So he would have said that. That's my point. He didn't say none of that. He's been teaching us the whole time to keep the law. He even gave us a few out of the 10 commandments. Then he went, to the other commandments that's after the 10 commandments. Gave us some of the civil laws and the marital laws and stuff. So yeah, he's been teaching keeping the law. And once again, we're about to end this, but I just want to say this. Again, the church never teaches us what Jesus taught. They only teach us what Jesus did. And you're like, well, he healed the sick, he healed the blind, he walked on water, you know what I'm saying? He died and rose again, he was raised from the dead, all that stuff. They only tell us what he did and never tell us what he said. The only thing they'll say, like, Jesus loved you. This, so they don't actually think about it. And I know I'm not lying, because I spent like a good 20-something years of my life in the church. So I know that they don't teach you what Jesus taught. They only teach you what he said. They might read some verses that he said, but they don't teach you what he said. They start freestyling and talking about some crazy stuff that have contextually not anything to do with what the scripture just said. So yeah, man, I'm going to end up going on a rant on that, because like I said, this messed up that we've been taught all these things and we never, came to the conclusion and say, you know what, I think something ain't right. Because then when you actually read, when you read what he taught, you see that he taught us to keep the law. Yes, I keep hammering in. So that's just what we should take from this. That Jesus taught us that we should keep the law. And as we keep reading, because we're going to do this whole book, as we keep reading, we're going to see he never told us not to keep it. So with that, I'm going to say shalom, peace, until next time.